Hello friends, welcome back. Have you ever experienced that feeling of utter confusion? You're confused during a conversation, and then even looking back on it, you're confused, and you're constantly walking around with that heavy, tired, just constantly having that feeling of am I going crazy? Did I imagine that? What just happened? How did that conversation go that way? If you've experienced these things, that is because they have perfected a few of their deflection techniques. I'd like to go over a few of them. I have 5 that I want to talk about. All of these characteristics or deflection techniques are used also by narcissists. Honestly, the older they get, the better they get at these techniques, sadly. I'd like to start with gaslighting or flipping the script. Some of you may have heard about gaslighting. It's actually the term comes from an old movie. The husband was trying to convince the wife that she was crazy, and he would use gaslighting techniques on her. And what that looks like is basically when you call them out on something and they feel backed in a corner and they have no other way of talking their way out of something, they will flip it on you. They will call you abusive, especially if there's people around that can hear. They want that attention. They feel a spotlight on them. They've been called out and they want that spotlight removed from them, so they will do anything that they possibly can, lie, say things happened that didn't happen, be very, very convincing to flip that spotlight on you and make you the bad guy. They want that attention off of them because they are being exposed. They want that on you, so you look like the one who's crazy. You look like the one who's emotionally unstable. Say things that happened that did not happen. I have an example for you. Not too long ago, my daughter and I were having a conversation. I had filmed it, and she was very, very convincing. And I'm not going to tell her this, but I'll tell you, she actually had me feeling like maybe I did say that. Maybe I didn't hear her. Maybe she did say that and I didn't hear her. She was so convincing, and what she was trying to convince me of was that she had asked to vacuum her bedroom. She said, "Really, Tina? Really? You know that I asked to vacuum my room." And she hadn't. I knew that, but she's like an Academy Award actress. I would never tell her that, but I used to wonder when she was younger, how can a child have such skills in manipulation and deceit? It still, I don't understand how that's possible. How could a child be so good at being convincing of a lie? But they are. This is a skill, a survival technique that they have learned. They will even go so far as to start provoking you. They know what buttons to push. They know what to say to get your dander up, to get a reaction out of you, to prove when you react, you're proving to everyone else, or at least themselves, that you're the bad guy and not them. I've made that mistake. I don't even know how many times. The purpose of this, this particular deflection, gaslighting, is only to get out of that situation in the moment, in the conversation, but also over time, it wears down your ability to trust your own judgment and those around you, family members, friends, church members, school staff, it wears down their opinion of your judgment to call out abuse or negative behaviors. That wears down your own trusting in your judgment of what is abusive and what is not. And the less you trust your own judgment and the less other people trust your judgment of abusive behaviors, the less you're going to say them and the less you're going to call them out. So that's the purpose of that. A way of keeping in reality and trusting your own judgment is actually keeping a journal, and daily or even just incidences, conversations that go wrong, write them down. Write everything down. That will help you remember what really happened, what was said and what happened. Number 2 is projection and blame shifting. They will blame you or anyone else who's available of their bad behaviors. This is actually, if you're paying attention, and you can train yourself to pay attention, when you recognize that they are accusing someone of something, or sometimes I'll even say, you're thinking this, you were thinking, or that person was thinking, that actually gives you an insight of what they were thinking. Those negative behaviors that they're trying to project onto you or blaming you for, that tells you something about them. One incident with my daughter was, we own a hardware store here in our town, and I had picked her up. She's supposed to be doing schoolwork on the computer. However, that's stopped. She's refused to do the schoolwork and dropped out. At that time, she was still going to school, and I had picked her up and taken her to the actual school for testing because she had to do her testing there. She was angry that day, was yelling at me in the car, calling me every foul name you can think of, and was starting to be a little aggressive. That is actually a scary situation while you're driving. Anyway, once we got back to the store, as soon as we walked through the door, I just wanted to quickly get back to the office. There were customers standing around, and as soon as the door opened and we walked through, she started yelling. She started calling me names, cussing at me, really drawing attention. She was yelling, "You're abusive, you abuse me, you do this, you do that." I can't even remember what all she was accusing me of, but I remember her yelling that I was abusive, and all I could think was to just get back to that office as quickly as possible. I was thoroughly embarrassed that customers had heard this. Later, after thinking about it, she was projecting her behaviors onto me. She knows what's right and she knows what's wrong, and those were negative things. She was trying to blame me for being mentally or physically abusive because those are her traits. But that would be blame shifting, projecting her thoughts, her feelings, her actions onto me to make me look like the bad guy and to make herself look like the victim. This is actually a way that they use in their own minds to justify their actions. If they're screaming at you, "You're abusive," then that's justifying themselves in their own mind of why they're yelling and being abusive at that moment, or why they're trashing their room or poisoning the cat or whatever. You got to remember, they do not think like we do. So this actually gives them or enables them to continue in their behaviors because it's been justified in their own mind. You are abusive. You are the problem, not me. we project our own good traits on them and give them the benefit of the doubt, especially when it's your child and you love them. But we have to be smart about this, because honestly, looking back at myself with my daughter, all of those times that I gave her the benefit of the doubt, it was kind of teaching her to continue. It was strengthening those deflection techniques that she was practicing on me. And I really don't know how we could avoid that. We have to give them chances to prove themselves, but at some point we have to know when to say, okay, that's enough. And I think that's an individual choice in that matter. Number 3 would be nonsense conversations. We've learned with this list of symptoms that one of the symptoms on the list is nonsense chatter or nonsense words. As they get older, they start using this in entire sentences and conversations. It's just complete nonsense. It's talking in circles. It's leading down rabbit trails, and you become completely confused on what were you originally talking about? How did the conversation get there? Wait a minute, what was the question I just asked? Did you answer it? They are actually leading the conversation, and they're purposely trying to get you confused and disoriented because, again, they have been called out, they've been backed in a corner, and this is a survival technique that they have learned to confuse you and get you off their back. During those times that they are capable of leading you down a rabbit trail and getting you off subject, it actually feeds them. And when I use the term feeding them, what we eat, whether that be food, if I eat a lot of food, I am going to physically grow. Spiritually speaking, if I read my Bible, that is food for my spirit. When these kids or teenagers, the older kids, when they use these techniques, it feeds them. It causes them to grow in strength in these areas. That's why I'm pointing these things out, because we need to be aware what they're doing and what's happening. We don't want these things to grow in them. We don't want them to get stronger in the ability to deceive someone. They are actually growing, and they are feeling superior. They feel superior that they had led the conversation knowingly, led it in a different direction to take your eyes off of what they were being exposed. They were being called out. They feel superior when they are capable of leading you away from that over here, and you followed. And how they do that is they will purposely bait you. They will say things they know bothers you. They will say things that they know you will respond to or react to. They will blame someone else. That will get your attention on the other person. Maybe you believe it, or even if you're defending that person, you had went there. That's all they cared about. They don't care if you believed the lie about the person or not. All they cared about is leading you away from this and over there. Does that make sense? Number 4 is moving the goalpost. How many times have you felt like if you just did this or did that, they would feel loved and feel secure and settle down? How many times have you felt like if they see you're still there, you go out of your way for them, you give them attention, you take them to the doctor, you do these special school things, you fix them special food, you research all of these things. You research RAD, you research vitamins and special diets that may help. I did all of these things too. And none of those things were ever good enough. They move the goalpost, so you are never going to reach it. That inch that you gave them will never be, they are not grateful for that. They will not be grateful for that inch. They want more. Every time you reach that mark, that goalpost mark, it doesn't feel good enough for them. And that takes me back to the whole black hole analogy. I will link that video up here somewhere. But that is exactly the same thing. As soon as you reach that goalpost mark, it doesn't feel good enough for them. So they move it. It's like they don't know what happiness is. And I've talked to my daughter about this, and now when we talk about it, we just use the fireworks example, and we both know what that means. You and I could be completely content with our favorite cup of coffee or tea and a stroll through a beautiful garden, listening to the birds, how the sun feels on our skin, the smell of flowers in the air. All of these things sound just so lovely and just such a beautiful moment in time. They don't recognize that beautiful moment in time. They have created such a high standard in their own minds of what happiness is. It is somewhere in the fireworks range, and just having your favorite drink and enjoying the beauty of nature is not fireworks. It's just unattainable. Everything is unattainable. So actually, as you are trying to reach that goalpost to prove to them that you love them, that you're not leaving, that you care, all of those things, they are actually lowering your standards of them. My daughter used to help out and do chores, and I remember she had taken a test at school, and she had told the teacher that her parents expect too much out of her. And we had had a therapist coming here to our house at that time, and I remember talking to the therapist, and even she asked, "What is it that you're expecting? For her to brush her teeth, take a shower, make her bed?" Because literally that's all we're expecting at that point. Those standards had been lowered so much. Even saying thank you was good progress. And after 7 years of therapy, that should not be so. They are constantly lowering your standards and raising theirs of you. So in the meantime, you're constantly chasing after them, which is what they want. But it justifies in their own mind how they're a victim of mean parents who just don't care. Number 5 is boundaries and hoovering. I don't know if you've heard the expression hoovering. It's more so used with narcissists. It is exactly what RAD kids do, though. They fool you into believing them, so you are trying to move towards that goalpost again by promises of good behavior, false promises, that is, and nice gestures. They'll give you just enough to keep you chasing after them, but it's all fake. None of it's real. Now, I'm not speaking for every child. Some kids out there may really genuinely be trying to get well. The majority are not. And the reason I say the majority is because we don't hear about a lot of success stories, and that's the truth of it. We really need to just come to the understanding that these kids will push those boundaries. Like I was saying before, that inch you gave, that's not good enough. They want more. They will say whatever. Remember, I was telling you my daughter says she likes to shock people. How could she say that? How could she do that? She likes to shock people. That's pushing boundaries. And every time she gets away with one of those boundaries, that goalpost has been moved. And in the meantime, our standards of her are lowering. We're expecting less from her, and she's expecting more from us, which is a classic RAD kid. They want you to do all of the work for them. So I hope that these 5 deflection techniques to escape accountability help you understand what's really happening. It's really very sad that we have to train ourselves to be aware of these things, and this is why we become so hypervigilant. Very exhausting. It's very exhausting having to be so hypervigilant. But in reality, head games, which is what these are very mentally exhausting. And the quicker we figure out that that's what's happening, the quicker we won't be fooled by them. But these are things that I figured out along the way, and I wish that I had figured them out sooner, because that was a lot of stress. That was many years of stress and confusion and doubt and worry that I did not need to go through. The sooner we figure out that that's what's happening, the sooner we can stop feeding them in that area and maybe help them in that way. So anyway, I hope you guys are having a great day. I hope your week is going well. Anyway, I will see you guys in the next video. So until then, bye-bye.